Max Stirner and Friedrich Nietzsche, two giants of radical individualism, often seen as philosophical siblings. But how similar are they, really? In this video, we'll break down the core differences between Stirner's egoism and Nietzsche's philosophy, using the work of scholars who have spent years unpacking these ideas. Let's dive into what sets these two thinkers apart and why those differences matter. Both Stirner and Nietzsche attacked traditional morality and societal structure. They questioned religion, morality, and the roles these play in controlling the individual. But that's about where the similarities end. Stirner's focus on egoism and Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch led them in drastically different directions, even though it doesn't seem like that. Let's start by understanding what each philosopher is fundamentally concerned with. Max Stirner, in The Ego and Its Own, asserts that the individual is bound by spook, ghost-like abstractions such as the state, religion, or humanity. These spooks, according to Stirner, are tools used to oppress desire and self-interest. Stirner's solution, or rather his personal approach, is egoism, the radical ownership of oneself and action. Nietzsche, on the other hand, presents a more complex vision of individualism. He argues for the transcendence of the individual through the concept of the Übermensch. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche portrays the Übermensch as one who has overcome morality, not just through rejection, but through the creation of new values, the embodiment of strength, power, and life affirmation. At first glance, these might seem like different expressions of the same idea, individual liberation from societal norms. However, their differences lie in the way they approach the self and its relation to the world. Philosopher Saul Newman, in his analysis of Stirner, points out that Stirner's egoism is purely negative. Stirner's ego is not an aspirational figure or a state of being to attain. Rather, it's the individual's recognition of their own sovereignty, divorced from any need for transcendence or higher ideals. Nietzsche, by contrast, offers the Übermensch as a positive ideal. The Übermensch is not just free from the herd morality, but also actively creates new values and meanings. For Nietzsche, this creation is central to the human experience. The Übermensch is the future of humanity, a symbol of what we could become if we embrace the will to power and reject both the slave morality of religion and the nihilism that often follows its rejection. As philosopher Robert C. Solomon observes, Nietzsche is a philosopher of becoming, whereas Stirner is a philosopher of being. Nietzsche's Übermensch is a forward-looking figure, one who strives towards self-overcoming. In contrast, Stirner's ego is satisfied with the present, content in its rejection of external authority. Another critical difference between Stirner and Nietzsche lies in their treatment of rebellion. Stirner is fundamentally a thinker of negation. His rebellion is one of destruction, destroying the spooks that bind us. Whether it's the state, religion, or even humanity itself, Stirner wants us to strip away these illusions and live purely for self-interest. For Stirner, rebellion doesn't lead to a higher goal or a new order. It's about personal liberation in the immediate sense. There's no grand vision of the future, no Übermensch to strive toward. Stirner's egoists exist solely in the moment, claiming their freedom by rejecting all external influences. But that doesn't mean that he is free from consequences or could represent a rejection of the Übermensch altogether. The egoist is not interested in that kind of rejection. He doesn't advocate for any new order. In fact, any form of collective action or higher ideal could quickly become another spook. For Stirner, the point is not to replace one system with another, but to reject all systems entirely. Nietzsche, on the other hand, sees rebellion as a precursor to creation. Yes, Nietzsche advocates for the destruction of old values, but this destruction is always in service of something higher, the creation of new values by the Übermensch. Nietzsche's famous proclamation, quote, "God is dead," signals not just the death of Christian morality, but the need for humanity to create a new way of being. While Stirner is primarily concerned with what the individual must destroy to be free, Nietzsche is equally concerned with what the individual must create. Rebellion for Nietzsche isn't just about tearing down, it's about the possibility of building something far greater in its place. When it comes to power and freedom, Stirner and Nietzsche again differ in key ways. For Stirner, freedom is about autonomy, freedom from spook. This is where Stirner's philosophy takes a distinctly anarchistic tone. He argues that true freedom can only exist when the individual is no longer bound by any external forces, be it the state, morality, or religion. This is anarchism in its purest form. Nietzsche's vision of freedom is rooted in power, but not in the anarchistic sense, which Stirner champions. For Nietzsche, the Übermensch is free because they have the strength to impose their will. The Übermensch doesn't seek to be free from power, they seek to master it. Thus, while Stirner's freedom is about the rejection of authority, Nietzsche's freedom is about embracing and wielding power. Stirner's egoist lives without a master, including his own mind. Nietzsche's Übermensch seeks to become the master. But this is complicated, so I have recently created my own little system of understanding it. This is something I've been calling power versus felt power. So whereas Nietzsche's Übermensch is an ideal to attain, which inherently adds a layer of seeking of power, Stirner's egoist does not seek, but simply feels power. One could even go so far as to call it a kind of conscious delusion of grandeur, which exists more as a protector against spook rather than a goal to attain. Another interesting divergence between Stirner and Nietzsche is their responses to existential questions about meaning and nihilism. Stirner, in his rejection of all spooks, leaves us with a kind of nihilism, but also a rejection of nihilism, which is kind of like leaving us with more than nothing, less than nothing, the ultimate nothing. Stirner's egoism could be seen as a precursor to nihilism, where all values are stripped away, leaving only the individual. This radical self-ownership, while liberating, offers no clear path to meaning or anything beyond the immediate pursuit of one's own desires. But Stirner did this on purpose. Nietzsche, however, tackles nihilism head-on. In his critique of Christian morality, Nietzsche warns that the death of God could lead to a nihilistic crisis, a loss of meaning in a world without a divine order. But Nietzsche doesn't stop at this rejection. The Übermensch represents humanity's answer to nihilism, a creator of new values in a world where old values no longer hold sway. Philosopher Alexander Nehamas argues that Nietzsche's philosophy is fundamentally life-affirming. In his view, Nietzsche's Übermensch offers a way to overcome nihilism by embracing the creative potential of the individual. Rather than succumbing to the meaninglessness of life, Nietzsche urges us to create meaning. But I claim that the reason Stirner didn't give us a path beyond destroying spooks is because that would inherently infringe on the autonomy of others, create new spooks, and make him a kind of giant hypocrite. So, where does this leave us? Stirner and Nietzsche both offer radical critiques of the world as it is, but they leave us with very different visions of what comes next. Stirner's egoism asks us to reject all spooks and live for ourselves. It's simple. There's no higher goal than our own autonomy. Nietzsche, however, challenges us to overcome nihilism, to destroy the old and create the new, to strive for the Übermensch. In the end, the difference between Stirner and Nietzsche might come down to this. Do you seek liberation from the world, or do you seek to master it? Are you content with the freedom to live as you please, or do you crave the power to reshape the world in your image? And is it even possible? Let me know in the comments which philosophy resonates more with you. Thank you for watching Recurring Paradox. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into philosophy, egoism, and radical individualism.